Yiheng just got another 2x2 world record average with a time of 0.88. But the first question everyone was asking was, is it legit? This is because a few months earlier this year, Yiheng got a 0.78 world record average, which was eventually disqualified because of the timer starts being not clean. So if we bring in the world record again, people had the same questions. So in this video, I'll be investigating every single solve in this average and giving a final verdict of if I think this average should count. Let's take a look at the solves first.
预判了，全预判了。
What's obvious at first is this huge block here, and probably not red because these corners are not well placed, so the best option would probably be blue. With one move, you can get this L and assist the corner. So you could turn this into a CLO with double sexy, but then you get this case, which is not that good. Or you could do an F move here, and then just insert the corner and get an EG1 case. But once again, this is not a good enough case for him. So what he does is a random U prime move, just to mix up the top layer, and then try the same thing. Put the blue here and then insert the corner. And this is actually a pretty good EG1 case. Pretty TPS spammable and no regrips. And then this EG1 case, F prime, sexy sexy, lefty sexy. So at first glance, probably have to use this big block here, so green or yellow. If you look at yellow, you can solve the layer pretty quickly, but then you have a pretty bad case. Again, Yiheng's pretty picky about the cases he ends up getting. So what you can do is green. You can put in one piece with just two moves, and then do a double move to insert this. And you get a pretty nice case here. However, you have to do a U prime, do the CLO, and then a U to end it off, adding two extra moves. If you can somehow solve the layer into this position, then there's no extra moves or rotations. And that's exactly what Yiheng does. He holds the cube from this position, so this blocks on top, which is pretty strange. But check out the solution for the first layer. R prime, F2, R2 to solve this, and then F prime. Those same moves as before, but from a different angle. And now you get this perfect CLO from the perfect angle, which is also another regroupless algorithm. Alright, once again, looking at blocks, there's one here for white and red, and then one here for yellow and green. Looking at those blocks, nothing too promising other than white. From this angle, R2 to solve this corner, and then insert this. You get that same case as before, but mirrored. Once again, a really nice case, but this angle is not the best. So he's going to choose this solution, and again, pretty creative angle. This block's actually on the top layer. So he'll solve the block first to make that L. Solve this corner in the back with L moves. Do U prime, and look at that. By manipulating the angles, you have this case, no AUF, done lefty. This scramble, again, there's another block. It's pretty straightforward though. If you do red, you don't get a great case. So it's pretty obvious to do yellow here. If you solve this layer with these two, the most obvious solution, then you actually get a pretty nice CLO case. The CLO case starts with an RU to R prime. So just keep that in mind, because we'll just be canceling here. So make the layer, and then R prime U to R prime. That's cancellation, and then sledge. Alright, once again, we have a block, so we're looking at yellow and blue probably. Looking at blue, it's not the best. Solve the layer, you get this case, which is not the greatest. Taking a look at yellow then, you can solve this, not the best case. And solve this layer, you get this, which is not the best also. But if you do a sledgehammer to solve this corner, you get this pretty nice case. Usually I solve it from this angle, but after solving this, there's U2 AUF. So Yiheng smartly does a U prime, and then does it lefty. This way there's no AUF, which is pretty clever. And then this same algorithm. And he's really good at left moves, so this is no problem for him. This is a clutch solve because it was 14 moves, which is a decent amount, but he executes at a crazy 16.4 TPS. Now the first thing we have to look at for this average is the TPS counts, because 16.5 on the last solve is pretty crazy. So if you look at the TPS averages for this world record average, it's around 14 to 15 TPS. If you look at this 0.78 world record, which is disqualified, that had a crazy 16 to 17 TPS. So already by looking at the TPS, these solves are a bit more believable. But to actually verify this, let's go watch the videos in slow motion to find exact frames for the timer starts to see if they're clean. First off, let's look at what qualifies for frame-by-frame analysis. To qualify, it has to fall into one of these categories, and it follows actually the first category you mentioned. This is a record that falls in the top 50 results in the world. Let's see what we can check. The main thing we can check is that the starting position of the hands are valid. We are not allowed to check anything related to timer stops. And for penalties to be applied, there has to be a strong degree of confidence. If it's close or debatable, probably it won't be penalized. It has to be very clear. Keeping that in mind, let's see how the .78 was penalized. Here are the penalties applied, and let's see the explanation for these penalties. So here's the two major rules that you have to consider. You have to start the timer with your fingers and with your palms facing down. Next, you can't have physical contact with the puzzle while starting the solve. Each of these infractions is an additional +2 penalty. And here's how you find the position of the timer start. Find the video's frame rate, and then find the number of frames that the solve should have been. Then you find the first frame where the timer could have been stopped. Then rewind the video from that last frame backwards the number of frames the solve should have been. Then you should get the timer start. Here is the report for the .78, and here we can go through what the WCA considers what penalty. So here's attempt 1. Hands are touching the cube, that's a +2. And then the fingers aren't on the timer, facing down, so that's also a +2. Attempt 2. The hands aren't touching the cube, which is good, but the fingers aren't really on the timer facing down, so that's a +2. Pretty close though. Similar idea here, not touching the cube, which is good, but the fingers aren't really touching the timer, so +2. This one's debatable. This one they assign no penalty, which is pretty interesting. But again, the WCA wants great degree of certainty when deciding penalties, and this one's probably the closest. Not touching the cube, and the fingers are kind of on the timer, so apparently no penalty here. And then attempt 5, this is pretty clear. Touching the cube, fingers are clearly not on the timer, +4. So let's apply these rules onto Yiheng's .88 world record average. So the video I have is at 30 frames per second. This first solve is 1.26. So multiply that, let's round it to 38 frames. Let's go to the stopping position. Let's say around here, and let's go back 38 frames and see what's there. And I think this is the stopping position. A bit questionable with these fingers up top, but these fingers are on the pad. It's pretty close, but if you look at the solve from the report that wasn't penalized, it's pretty similar. If fingers are mostly on the pad, then it should be good. So this should be clean. Let's check out solve 2. 30 frames times 0.84. For benefit of the doubt, let's say 26 frames. Here's the stopping position, and then we'll go back 26 frames. And once again, this looks pretty clean. Fingers are up a little bit here, but this looks pretty clean of a timer start. If you round down to 25 frames, the timer start is a lot more questionable, but giving the full benefit of the doubt, this should be fine. Let's go to solve 3. 0.91 times 30. Let's say 28 frames. Here's the last frame, and let's go back 28 frames. Here's the result. Once again, a bit fishy with the finger going up, but the fingers are mostly on the pad. Once again, I'll say it's clean, but it's close. Solve 4, 0.89 times 30, 27 frames. Let's say here's the last frame. Let's go back 27 frames. This is probably one of the cleaner timer starts. Pretty much all fingers are on the pad, they haven't lifted. It looks like he's touching the cube, but I don't think he is. It's just maybe the angle. So, no +2 here. And then last solve, we have 0.85 times 30. Let's say 26 frames. Now this is the solve we turn the fastest on, so this is pretty important. On this video, there's someone blocking the camera, thanks a lot, but here's pretty much where you stop the timer. So let's go back 26 frames. Here's the timer start. Once again, it's close. The fingers are a bit raised there, but the fingers are on the pads. I think this would still be ruled okay. Because it's not that accurate with the person blocking the camera, let's try another angle. This is from another video. The starting position is right here. We're going back 26 frames from here. It's a bit low quality, but it looks even better from here. Fingers are on the pads. This looks pretty clean. So if we follow the steps laid out by the WCA in the report, this average looks pretty clean, although there are some solves that are a bit close. But if attempt 4 was okay from the world record average that they disqualified, the .88 should stand. Now, Yiheng's mom did make a post saying that she disagreed with the .78 disqualification and claiming that Yiheng wasn't sliding. And although the .78 is probably never coming back, it does seem like Yiheng did improve his timer starts. At the recent Asian Championships, Yiheng had all of his solves filmed from the back with a high quality camera to capture just the timer starts and stops, which I think shows that he thinks his timer starts are still very clean and will back it up with his own video. There was some confusion about Cube Group not posting the video of this average, but he says it's not based off sliding, and we already have video right now, so I don't think there is much controversy about this case anymore. Yiheng does get overly scrutinized, for good reason because he's that good, but I think it's fair to say that this average is as good as it gets. So huge congrats to Yiheng for the first sub 0.9 average. That should hopefully stand, but we'll see.